This is Shuttle Launch Control at T-minus 3 hours and holding. Good morning and thank you for joining us. We're providing live coverage of today's launch attempt of Space Shuttle Discovery on mission STS-102. The shuttle vehicle, 7-member flight crew, and the KSC launch team are ready to support the 103rd flight in Space Shuttle history and the 8th flight to the International Space Station. The focus of the mission is threefold. Discovery and crew will berth the multi-purpose logistics module to the International Space Station, deliver the 3-member Expedition 2 crew for their 4-month stay on ISS, and return the Expedition 1 crew back to Earth. Here at NASA's John F. Kennedy Space Center in Firing Room Number 1, launch preparations are proceeding smoothly. The launch team not working any significant technical issues at this time. Space Shuttle Discovery stands poised for liftoff from Launch Pad 39B with a preferred launch time of 6:42 a.m. Eastern Time. The most precious cargo on Discovery's 29th flight is obviously the flight crew. Some would consider the 3 Expedition 2 crew members the primary payload being carried to space station. But the hardware inside Discovery's payload bay right now, weighing in at 22,265 pounds, measuring 21 feet in length, is Leonardo. This moving van of sorts, built by the Italian Space Agency, will deliver about 10 tons of racks, equipment, experiments, and supplies for the U.S.-made Destiny laboratory module. The current STS-102 flight plan has Discovery docking with the International Space Station on March 10th at about 12:32 a.m. Eastern. 2 spacewalks are scheduled. The first occurs again on March 10th at about 11:47 p.m. and the second on March 12th at 11:47 p.m. Leonardo's berth to the station is planned on the 12th as well at 12:17 a.m. Flight plan calls for Discovery to undock from the International Space Station on March 17th and land at the Kennedy Space Center on March 20th at about 2:02 a.m. Eastern Time. Last night, the launch team began loading Discovery's external tank with about 500,000 gallons of liquid propellant at about 9:30 p.m. Eastern. That activity was completed a short time ago at about 12:20 a.m. today. Launch controllers, Space Shuttle Discovery, and the space station payload are ready for today's launch attempt, with favorable weather expected at liftoff time. In the pre-tanking meeting this morning, weather officials improved their forecast to only a 10% chance that weather will violate today's launch attempt criteria. Forecast calls for clear skies, winds from the northwest at 6 knots, peaking to 9 knots, and at launch time the temperature is forecast to be at 44 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, the primary focus for today's weather will be ice formation on the Space Shuttle vehicle, and is part of the standard pre-launch preparation. The final inspection team out at the launch pad right now will be looking closely at every angle and major component of the Space Shuttle system. We're just hours away from Orbiter Discovery's 29th space flight with a crew of 7 astronauts. Liftoff again planned for 6:42 a.m. This is a preferred launch time of a window not to exceed 5 minutes in length. That preferred time is within a planar window that opens at 6:37 a.m. Eastern today and closes at 6:47 a.m. Once again, the launch team not tracking any technical problems at this time. Weather forecast generally favorable for today's launch attempt. And countdown events remain on schedule. At T-minus 3 hours and holding, this is shuttle launch control. Last night at about 11 p.m. They will gather again for a snack and photo opportunity with the traditional crew cake at about 1:45 this morning in just about 7 or 8 minutes. The STS-102 crew consists of Jim Weatherby as the commander with over 955 hours in space, pilot James Kelly making his first flight aboard the shuttle, mission specialist number 1 Andy Thomas taking his third shuttle flight, Mission Specialist 2, Paul Richards, the second rookie on this shuttle flight. MS-3, James Voss, a member of the Expedition 2 crew, looking forward to his 5th shuttle mission. MS-4, Susan Helms, joins Voss on the Expedition 2 crew and is a veteran of 4 previous shuttle flights. And the crew is rounded off with MS-5, Yuri Usachev, the Russian Expedition 2 crew commander, making his 2nd shuttle flight. The flight crew arrived at KSC on Sunday, March 4th, and each of them made brief statements to the media that gathered at KSC's shuttle landing facility runway to welcome them.
The best thing about space flight, we think, is not riding on the rocket. It's not the rendezvous and the docking, nor the re-entry or the landing. It's really the people who are working in the space program. We've worked with a lot of great people this previous 9 months getting ready for this with our trainers and instructors and the flight controllers. The folks down here at the Cape have done a great job in preparing the vehicle. And that's what spaceflight is all about. And the other humans that we're thinking about as we get ready to launch are our other 3 crew members who are not here today. They will be flying overhead, doing some great work as they end Expedition 1, and will bring up Expedition 2 and really use the shuttle for what it was intended, that is to shuttle people back and forth to space. Thanks for coming, and I'd like to introduce my pilot, Jim Kelly from Iowa.
Everybody, thanks for coming out tonight. I'm joyously happy to be here for my first flight. Looking forward to this Thursday. Hope we'll get off on time. The weather will be good for us. And I'd like to thank all the folks that have made this happen to get us here today, like Wex said, everyone else around there. And also like to say thanks to all of our families who are hopefully coming down tomorrow to support us all the way to get here. And looking forward to Thursday. I'm going to turn it over to Andy Thomas, MS1.
Well, Well, hi. Thanks for coming down to meet us on this warm Florida night. You know, it's been about 20 years, I think, something like 100 crews have stood here, and each one of the 300 or so people of those made up those crews have said, it's really good to be here and we're really looking forward to launch. And it might sound trite that so many people have said the same thing, but they say it because it's true. It really is a wonderful opportunity to come down and do this, and we're going to have a great adventure on Thursday, and I hope you'll all share it with us. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mission Specialist 2, Paul Richards.
Good evening. I'm really excited to be here for my first flight as well, and it was a long road getting here, but we're ready. I'd also like to echo all the thanks to all the training folks, all the people we worked with in our careers along the way, and our friends and families, and hope to show you guys a really good launch on Thursday. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Jim Voss.
Well, I hear Discovery is ready for us. We're ready to go up to the International Space Station, get first-hand information from the Expedition 1 crew, take over and stay there for 4.5 or 5 months. I know that the Expedition crew 2, the 2 crew, is really ready to go. Thanks. I'll introduce my Russian commander, Yuri Vladimirovich Usachov.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. I'd like to say thank you, everybody, for your comment. It would be colder without you here. Thank you very much. I hope the weather will be much warmer for our launch. Looks like next week we'll have launch, and I'm looking forward to do that. Thank you. See, it looks like it's a incremental tradition. I would like to introduce my right hand, Susan Helms.
Well, it's been a long time getting here for Expedition 2 as Expedition 2, and I just wanted to say thanks to everybody. We'll be up there a long time, several months. We won't see you until the landing, probably this fall, and that being the case, thanks for coming out, and I'd like to say a special hello to my nephew, Bryant, who's way over there in the corner. Bryant, I won't see you for about 6 months, but please be there to greet me on landing.
Here we are live in the crew quarters dining room here at Kennedy Space Center, the STS-102 crew. To the far left, we have Mission Specialist Paul Richards, MS number 2, and Andy Thomas to his right. Pilot Jim Kelly making his first shuttle flight today. Commander Jim Weatherby, responsible for mission safety and success. Expedition 2 Commander and Mission Specialist number 5, Yuri Usachov of the Russian Space Agency. Susan Helms, Mission Specialist number 4 on the left, and James Voss, Mission Specialist number 3 on the right, both a part of the Expedition 2 crew about to begin 4 months in space. And in the foreground, you see the traditional cake with the crew insignia on it. Crew in good spirits and ready to fly today. The next time we see the crew, they will be donning their orange launch and entry suits in about 30 minutes or so. This is Shuttle Launch Control at T-minus 3 hours and holding. We are in the suit-up room here at Kennedy Space Center's Operation and Checkout Building. We see Commander Weatherby already having donned his launch and entry suit. Born and raised in New York, considers Huntington Station, New York, his hometown. He is on his 5th shuttle mission and has been an astronaut since 1984. Rookie pilot Jim Kelly from Burlington, Iowa, selected as an astronaut in '96. He is part of the largest class of astronauts ever selected, affectionately referred to as the Sardines, one of 44 classmates. Though a rookie pilot on the Shuttle, he has over 1,500 hours of flight time and more than 35 different aircraft. We see his helmet being placed on him by the suit technicians. Mission Specialist number 1, Andy Thomas, born in Adelaide, South Australia. Thomas has been an astronaut since 1992, served as payload commander on his first flight, STS-77, spent 130 days aboard the Russian Mir space station in 1998. He is also a spacewalker scheduled for EVA number 2. Mission Specialist number 5 and Russian commander of the Expedition 2 crew, Yuri Usachov of the Russian Space Agency. Appointed as a cosmonaut in 1989, lived aboard Mir for 6 months in '94 and again in 1996. Mission Specialist number 4, Susan Helms, considers Portland, Oregon her hometown, became an astronaut in '91 and is a veteran of 4 previous shuttle flights, logged over 1,096 hours in space, second member of the Expedition 2 crew along with James Voss and Yuri Usachov. Here, Mission Specialist number 3, Jim Voss from Opelika, Alabama. Voss joined the Astronaut Corps in 1987, holding up some aviation reading material as he relaxes, being suited up. Veteran of 4 space flights. Mission Specialist and Flight Engineer Paul Richards hails from Dunmore, Pennsylvania. Reported to Houston, Texas for astronaut training with the pilot, Jim Kelly, in August of 1996, making his first space flight as a flight engineer. Crew members in high spirits. Looks to be a multilingual message holding up there. Jim Voss, as photographers take an opportunity to snap shots of the crew. Weatherby served as a pilot on his first flight in 1990, STS-32. Commanded his next 3 flights. And the crew now in their wrapping up suit-up activities at this time. All things continuing to go well from a crew perspective. Launch team ready to support launch. Space Shuttle Discovery in excellent health. And favorable weather forecasted for today's launch attempt. The T0 time right now targeted for a preferred launch time of 6:42 a.m. Eastern. And here they are, the STS-102 crew members leaving the suit-up room, headed down the hall and toward the elevator. They will descend to the street level where KSC employees and again news media have gathered to greet them and wish them well on their journey. Charlie Precourt and Terry Wilcutt there, climbing on board with the crew into the elevator. flight crew operations managers as well. And here come the STS-102 astronauts. The IMAX camera collecting close-up shots of the crew climbing aboard the Astrovan. Now aboard the Astrovan, they'll be carried out to launch pad 39B with the customary security escort. We expect the crew to arrive at the launch pad white room in about 20 minutes or so. Shuttle Discovery and the closeout crew are awaiting the arrival of the flight crew. With the flight crew now en route to launch pad 39B, we will show a few brief segments from each of the crew members' previously recorded interviews. First, Commander Jim Weatherby will discuss the connection between previous station flights.
And that's fly in space.
Right now, it looks like they're securing harnesses on the flight suit and checking out the parachute there, as well as other parts of the launch and entry suit.
That's exactly right. The closeout crew is getting the harness on him, and he's going to be ingressing the vehicle here in just a few moments. Right behind him, you can see Jeannie Alexander. She's our most experienced flight tech, suit tech. She's been at it for quite a long time.
There seems to be a lot of chatting going on between the crew members and the closeout crew, and obviously we saw the initial embrace as they climbed off the elevator. What role does the closeout crew play as far as the state of mind that the crew's in before they climb aboard?
Well, they've got a very important function, a bunch of important functions. Of course, one of them is that they're the last ones to interface with the astronauts prior to liftoff. You can see Captain Weatherby putting on his comm gear. But over the years, we get to know the members of the closeout crew. You know, they're the best of the best, and the closeout function for most of them is not a full-time job, but a part-time job. They're just picked among other positions across the Space Center, both Johnson Space Center and Kennedy Space Center. And so they're super folks, and they get to know all the astronauts very well as their equipment, and they're experts on the orbiter as well.
So it sounds like they're not only familiar with the astronauts, but they know the orbiter inside and out and all of the gear that the astronauts require for flight.
That's affirmative. The members of the closeout crew, there's 7 of them. You see number 3 there, that's Jean Alexander. She's one of the suit techs. And she gives me training on my gear at Johnson Space Center, as well as all the other astronauts.
Here we see Usachov and Voss again holding up that sign, the significance of which International Women's Day in Russia, written both in Cyrillic and in English. 3 days of celebration going on today, tomorrow, and Saturday.
Well, Joel, you know a lot about that. I was talking to Yuri this morning, and he showed me that placard he had. He tried to teach me the Russian words to pronounce it, and I'm one of the new Russian students, so I'm not checked out on Russian yet, so I couldn't say what the Russian word is. But my wife's here in town, and she's got the kids, and I'm going to make sure that I give her some flowers today.
Very appropriate. And now we see Commander Weatherby now climbing aboard Discovery and into his seat. What's going to go on now as he climbs aboard in the very early stages here, being strapped in?
Well, his biggest concern right at this moment is not to bump any switches. It's real cramped in there, Joel. But he's done this before, but he's a very tall man, and he's trying to make sure that he doesn't bump any switches, and he's trying to get himself comfortable because he's going to be sitting there for a while. You can see Jean Alexander, the suit tech for the flight deck. And I haven't seen Neil Woodward. He is the prime astronaut support person. He basically runs the team of 5 of us that get the orbiter ready for flight and get the guys strapped in. He's called the prime astronaut support person. I'll have this function for next flight, STS-100.
They've been on board Discovery's crew module for quite some time already by this time. Is that correct?
Yeah, Neil got up this morning at, well, actually last night at about 11 o'clock and got out to the vehicle about midnight.
Now we see Expedition 2 Commander Yuri Usachev.
This morning I was joking with Yuri. I said, Yuri, a Yuri in space.
Sounds like a good time to have some lighthearted discussion before liftoff, and though very focused, still a good time for fellowship before the crew actually climbs aboard.
Yuri's an outstanding gentleman, and I'm really pleased to have gotten to know him during this launch flow. After this expedition, he's going to have about 1.5 years in space.
Once Yuri climbs aboard, looks like he'll be seated in seat number 7 on the right mid-deck seat of Discovery.
Yes, the 3 expedition crew members are all on the mid-deck, and then you've got Captain Weatherby and Jim Kelly as the commander and pilot, and then the 2 MSs, Paul Richards and Andy Thomas, on the flight deck.
If you're just joining us, we're talking with astronaut Greg H. Johnson, about the flight crew's final preparation to board Shuttle Discovery, as we already have Commander Weatherby on board and now Yuri Usachev climbing through the crew hatch. Now we have Jim Kelly having just arrived in the White Room.
Jim Kelly's a great guy, former F-15 pilot in the Air Force, so we share some background together. We also went through test pilot school together back in the mid-90s. He's a great friend. I know his wife and 4 children are here at Launch Control Center getting ready for this this launch. They're excited as well.
Very exciting day for him as a first-time flyer aboard the shuttle, but extensive aircraft experience, as you've already stated.
Yes, he was a #1 graduate from his test pilot school, and he's basically been #1 across the board in his Air Force career, now a lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force.
Go ahead.
Again, Yuri Usachev in his seat, being strapped in.
It's a beautiful night out there tonight.
Yeah, the weather forecast looking favorable for today's launch attempt. Temperatures looking like they'll even come into limits somewhere in the 43 to 44 degrees Fahrenheit. Clear skies, and everything looking good from a weather standpoint as well as a technical standpoint here in the firing room. Nobody working any serious issues. Flight crew on schedule. Looking forward to an on-time liftoff at 6:42 a.m. Eastern.
You can see Greg in the background there, the number 6 man, Greg Loaning.
And OTC, OVCC. Right, OVCC. Yes, sir.
He's the NASA Quality Assurance Specialist. Each of the closeout crew members have a specific function on the team, and Greg's the guy who basically makes sure all quality assurance functions and closeout crew tasks are performed according to NASA and U.S. Space Alliance procedures.
Now, Greg, you're one of the astronaut support personnel. What exactly is going on at this particular point, and looking ahead to what you'll be doing when you're in the crew module on the next flight?
Well, Joel, as you know, the vehicle starts coming alive about 24 hours prior to launch. And so very slowly the systems are transitioned from ground control to orbiter control. And the most critical functions are, of course, turned on last. And the most critical functions are done by the crew themselves. But in that 24 hours or so prior to launch, the astronaut support team basically goes into the shuttle and gets the switches where they want to be, and then slowly turns on the systems.
Can we get a,
Now we see James Voss joining Jim Vegas Kelly in the white room.
Jim Voss, retired Army colonel. He's a great guy.
And a veteran of several space flights.
Oh, yes, but he's really excited about this one. He cited to me exactly how many years, months, and days he'd been training for the mission, but I can't remember. But it's over 5 years.
Veteran of exactly 4 previous space flights. He flew on STS-44, 53, 69, and most recently on STS-101, getting a chance to visit the International Space Station before this flight. I think he's totaling a logged time of 836 hours in space and about to begin a 4-month stay on orbit.
This is an exciting time in the space program, Joel. These guys are swapping out the first expedition, continuing the continuous presence in space.
Voss is going to take his place on the orbiter once he's ready, and seat number 5, the far left of the middeck.
What the suit techs do is they bring in a guy on the flight deck, and then they bring in a guy in on middeck, and swap out back and forth that way to get the guys in. About 50 or 55 minutes is what they're shooting for.
Very accurate timeline and a very stringent timeline for them, but they've done it so many times it seems like it's not treated as routine, but it comes off like routine.
Yep, there's George on the middeck, and he's doing final helmet stuff on Yuri. Hooking up the comm cords now.
OTC, CDR, com check. CDR, OTC, got you loud and clear. Good morning, Jim. Loud and clear, Jay. And OTC, OVCC. Yes, sir. PLT is aboard. Copy, thank you. NTD, CDR, contact.
That's confirmed.
CDR, this is NTD. I have you loud and clear. Welcome aboard, Jim. Hey, Jeff. Houston, Discovery, CDR, contact.
Now we have Commander Weatherby,
Loud and clear. Good morning.
Yuri Yusuchev, and Jim Kelly in their seats aboard Discovery.
Yeah, you can see Gene Alexander is hooking up the cooling unit to Vegas Kelly's suit. That cooling unit is really important. These guys are going to be sitting here for 3 hours, and the spacesuit is quite warm. We checked out those cooling units yesterday afternoon, and they were working great. But if they break for some reason, Gene's got some backup equipment that can take care of cooling for the crew. It's real cramped. You can see her reaching around him, trying to get his straps and everything in its proper place. Jim Kelly was a astronaut support person for 2 years. I think he might hold the record for that, having that position, and he was assigned to spaceflight just shortly after he left our position. And when he left, that's actually how I got on the team. So he's done this a lot, strapping guys in. He's really excited, I'm sure, to be the guy who's being strapped in.
While the STS-102 crew members are being strapped into Discovery, in parallel, the Expedition 1 crew members aboard the International Space Station right now on their 126th day aboard the International Space Station, having been in space continually for 128 days. With an on-time launch at 6:42 this morning, space station will be over the South Pacific, about 1,000 miles south of Perth, Australia. Here we see Australian native Andy Thomas in the foreground. Jim Voss in final preparations to ingress through the hatch of Discovery.
I haven't mentioned the number 4 and the number 5 guys, Dave Law and Tim Seymour. They're the mechanical techs.
OTC,
Together with Greg Loaning, they're the guys who do the work there in the White Room. They're going to be closing the hatch, and Greg's going to be checking it and inventorying the equipment. And, of course, the number 1 guy in charge, Chris Meinert, is the Orbiter Vehicle Crew Chief, or OVCC. Here's Jim now getting in a seat. You can see George, the suit tech, in the background there behind Jim. There's a lot more room in the mid deck than there is in the flight deck. You'll notice there's a lot of jostling around as George tries to get Jim set exactly in the right spot, because once he's got the straps on, it's very difficult to move his body around, so we really want to get it right the first time.
Seems that the one of the best things that the crew members can do is kind of remain still and help out in any way they can to let the suit tech do the work.
That's exactly right. When we brief them on the strap-in procedure, we tell them to lie like broccoli. You could see Yuri reviewing his notes. Spent, I think, 384 days in space at this point. That's incredible.
Got quite an experienced crew on board Discovery, climbing aboard Discovery. Obviously the 2 rookie astronauts aboard, but rounded off with a very experienced crew.
They're going to be doing comm checks shortly. They may already have done a comm check with the commander.
We'll continue to monitor their strap-in activities and listen in for any of the communication between crew members and launch controllers, flight controllers, throughout the next several minutes.
Copy 527.
Andy Thomas waiting on his turn to climb aboard Discovery. Susan Helms in the foreground, joining him in the white room.
Susan emphasized to me this morning that she is really looking forward to this flight and really motivated about spending this second expedition on the International Space Station.
Susan's going to join Jim Voss for the first spacewalk on this mission. Very experienced flyer herself. She'll be the last of the Expedition 2 crew members to swap out with the Expedition 1 crew aboard Space Station. The last one to climb off of Discovery and climb into the International Space Station.
Yes, Susan is another fellow Air Force officer. She's a full colonel in the United States Air Force and a U.S. Air Force Academy graduate.
She'll be responsible for the transfer of the vital systems racks from Leonardo into the International Space Station for installation into Destiny, the U.S. lab. Andy Thomas still standing by. He'll ride on Discovery's flight deck during the launch and on the mid-deck for landing, and on re-entry he will be tasked with assisting the Expedition 1 crew on their return back to the Earth environment. He'll be on the second spacewalk along with Paul Richards.
You can see Jim Kelly there. It looks like he's pretty much strapped in, and they're going to bring in Andy.
Andy will also be the prime robotic arm operator, sharing responsibilities with Kelly, who we just saw a few moments ago. And he is also in charge of cargo transfer from Leonardo to ISS.
OTC, PLT, comm check. PLT, OTC, got you loud and clear. Good morning, Vegas. Morning, Jerry.
Sounds like we've completed the, at least the preliminary voice checks with the commander, and now moving to the pilot voice checks.
NTD, PLT, com check. PLT, this is NTD. Have you loud and clear. Good morning, Vegas. Morning, Jeff. Got you loud and clear also. Houston, PLT, com check.
Pilot Houston, I read you loud and clear. Good morning, Vegas.
Good to hear your voice, Gus. Got you loud and clear as well.
And that was the voice of Gus Loria, the capsule communicator at Houston.
Just before that, we heard NASA Test Director Jeff Spaulding here at Kennedy doing a preliminary voice check as well.
Number 3, Gene Alexander's doing the final prep there on Andy's harness.
Yes, step 5, 6.
She wanted me to remind everyone that she's jostling those guys around, but in the interest of comfort, even though it looks like she's roughing them up, she's trying to do it for their own benefit.
As you stated earlier, they're going to be in those seats for quite some time before liftoff, and I guess comfort is just as important as the intricacies of strap-in.
You got to go, sir.
That's absolutely right. Those guys are going to be sitting in those seats for a long time, and when you're sitting motionless for 2.5, 3 hours, the smallest discomfort really can grow to be significant. Yeah, there's Paul Richards. He's just getting his harness on now. Paul's got a rich background in the space program and also the U.S. Navy.
He's going to make his first space flight today as MS-2 and flight engineer.
Post Ingress switch reconfig is complete. Ready to check caution warning volume using parameter 99.
Okay, copy that. ISLE, copy.
As an engineer, he has extensive experience in robotic, EVA tools, Shuttle ISS computer software. As a matter of fact, we'll have prime control and responsibility for the onboard computers on this flight, I understand.
Yes, he's got a very extensive background in EVA. He's designed some of the tools they'll be using out in space. Certified smart guy. These, like many of all of the MSs are certified smart guys compared to us pilots.
He's going to join Andy Thomas on the second spacewalk, and again responsible for the operation of Discovery's onboard computers.
And as MS-2, Mission Specialist number 2, the flight engineer on board, that's a very good position for a first flyer.
Excellent view in the flight deck of Discovery at this point.
Yeah, they moved the strap-in camera from the pilot's side as it was looking through Jim Kelly to the front of the orbiter, which is the top of the orbiter in this configuration, looking down. You can see the panels on the rear windows that Gene is stepping on now. Those panels will be removed, and then you can look straight down. But of course, to protect a lot of the equipment and windows in this case, there are pads and other panels that are protecting the orbiter.
Got you loud and clear. Welcome aboard, Yuri. Thank Thank you, Jerry. Loud and clear as well.
You can see Commander Weatherby flipping some switches, bringing the orbiter to life. Paul Richards is going to be the last one in today.
NTD MS5, come check. MS5, this is NTD. Have you loud and clear. Good morning, Yuri. Good morning, Jerry. Loud and clear. Houston, MS5, come check.
MS5 Houston, I read you loud and clear. Good morning, Yuri.
Good morning, guys. I read loud and clear as well. OTC, LVCC. LVCC. Yes, sir. MS4 is aboard. Copy, thank you.
There's a good shot of Neil Woodward, the prime astronaut support person on this flight.
OTC, CGLS. Go ahead, DLS. We've completed implementation of SAP-92. That'll be step 4.
What Neil's doing now is he's going back on the flight deck, I think.
Yes, sir. And if we can get
He kind of has to alternate between the flight deck and the mid-deck as the various crew members get strapped in.
CTSS. Go ahead. Yawn 554. RSRT OTC 212. I give you 564, sir. OTC CTSS? TSS. 556. Copy. OTC CTSS? Yeah, let me give you 555 also. Copy that.
OTC, CGNC.
TNC.
Step 568 verified.
Copy. Go ahead.
One of the important things that George is considering when he straps in the mid-deck crew members is he wants to make sure that all the connections are not going to interfere with the astronauts if they have to egress the orbiter for some reason. Especially if they have to egress the orbiter after hatch closure, they're going to have to do it themselves. So he's being very careful to route all the cables and connections such that the astronauts can get out of their seats in an orderly fashion, because those suits are very bulky and can catch on a lot of different things as you try to egress yourself.
You got to keep a lot of things in mind while they're strapping these guys in, not just preparations, comfort, accuracy, flight, but also, like you say, in the uneventful scrub. These guys have to climb off the shuttle, but right now, weather looking very favorable for launch, and no significant issues being worked here in the firing room, but that's something that they have to consider.
That's exactly right, and even in eventful scrub, it's even more important that they're able to get out of their seats in an expeditious manner without hurting each other or hurting themselves.
OTC CTLS 2 and 2. CTLS. Okay, if we can read you 547. 547. FEP dual interrupt notification will be activated momentarily and may cause re-enunciation of the error messages at the system's consoles for interrupt monitor parameters currently out of GLS limits. We'll also give you 548 at this time. Okay, thank you, GLS.
Just receiving an update here in the firing room from the LRD that at this point the solid rocket boosters recovery ships are expected to be on station in time for launch, despite the late departure yesterday and the high seas that were forecasted over the last few days.
You can start to see the mechanical technicians looking at the hatch and getting ready for hatch closure here in a few minutes.
Only one crew member to go, Paul Richards, who will be seated in seat number 4, located behind and between the commander and pilot.
Yeah, as MS2, the flight engineer on this flight, Paul's going to have a great view of the cockpit. He's kind of the guy who maintains situational awareness among the flight deck crew. I had my strap-in exercise where they put me in a suit a couple weeks ago. And one thing that really surprised me was how your reach and visibility is changed when you're in the big spacesuit. And the mission specialist number 2 sitting in the middle is able to reach a lot of the switches that I can't reach from the pilot seat. We do a lot of our training unsuited, most of our training unsuited, and so I'll be keeping that in mind as I continue my simulator training. That a lot of those switches that I can flip in the simulator, I just can't flip when I'm in this spacesuit. And there goes Paul.
OTC, OVCC. OVCC. Yes, sir. Our last crew member, MS2, is aboard. Okay, copy that. Thank you.
All 7 crew members now aboard Space Shuttle Discovery. Once again, Paul Richards climbing into the final flight deck seat, number 4.
You can see how carefully Neil is moving about in the cockpit. He's got his back inches from lots of very important switches and circuit breakers. It's very important as the strap-in guy to be aware of every part of your body and where it's located in reference to the panels. All the volume on the flight deck is getting filled, and it's getting pretty cramped there right now as he moves about.
Good morning, Andy. Good morning. Got you loud and clear, sir. GNC, OTC. Go ahead. is NTD. Have you loud and clear. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning. Got you loud and clear also. Houston, MS1, contact.
MS1 Houston, I read you loud and clear. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning, Gus. Got you loud and clear also.
Well, it's 3 o'clock in Houston, Houston time. Many of the folks in Mission Control Center in Houston have been up since basically just after dinner.
And the flight crew up since about 6:30 p.m. yesterday Eastern time.
That's true. The flight crew has an interesting sleep schedule right now. They're exactly 12 hours out of phase. It's been, living in crew quarters, it's been interesting because when we're all going to bed, those guys are just getting up.
OTC, MS4 contact.
MS4 OTC, got you loud and clear. Good morning, Susan.
Good morning, Jay. NTD, MS4 contact.
MS4, this is NTD. Have you loud and clear. Good morning, Susan.
Good morning, Jeff.
Joel, it looks a little bit dark in the on the flight deck there, and the reason is these guys are going to be launching right at sunrise, and so the lighting is configured for launch. Right now it seems a little bit dark, but as it gets lighter outside, it'll be just right for the launch. Neil's going to get to Paul Richards' helmet.
OTC, MS3, contact.
MS3 OTC, got you loud and clear. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Jerry. You're loud and clear.
OTC, CGNC.
Go DNC.
Step 581 is verified.
Copy, thank you.
NTD, MS3, contact.
MS3, this is NTD. Have you loud and clear. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Jeff. You're loud and clear. Houston, MS3, contact.
MS3 Houston, I read you loud and clear. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Gus. How you doing? You're loud and clear.
Once again, a configuration of switches in the cockpit, putting the APUs in a ready-to-start configuration.
OTC, PLT, APU pre-start complete. 3 gray talkbacks. Copy that.
APU pre-start is complete. Auxiliary power unit activation will come at T-minus 5 minutes. The APUs provide hydraulic power to the orbiter. Mission Control has transmitted the signal to start the flight recorders. 2 recorders will collect measurements of shuttle system performance during flight for playback after the vehicle is in orbit. T-minus 5 minutes and counting.
GLS is go for orbiter APU start. PLT, OTC perform. APU start.
APU activation has been reported complete.
CDR, reconfigure heaters. Edward.
Commander Weatherby is working to reconfigure the orbiter's heaters for launch.
Heater reconfig complete.
Ground launch sequencer has terminated liquid oxygen replenished to the external tank.
Third sequence 4.
At this point, a profile test of the orbiter's aero surfaces has started. Orbiter flight control surfaces are being moved through a pre-programmed pattern to verify that they are ready for launch. 3 main engines are being gimbaled and positioned for launch. All systems are go for the launch at this time. Just a few minutes away from the 29th voyage of Space Shuttle Discovery with a crew of 7. Coming up on pressurization of the tank holding super cold liquid oxygen propellant used to power the main engines.
GLS is go for ET LO2 pressurization.
Retraction of the gaseous oxygen vent hood or beanie cap should take place any moment now.
PLT, OTC, clear caution warning memory. Verify no unexpected errors. That's on what? OTC, PLT, caution warning memory cleared. No unexpected errors.
Beanie cap being removed from the top of the external tank. The next few seconds, the flight crew will close and lock their visors.
Edward.
T-minus 2 minutes to launch.
GLS is go for ET LH2 pressurization.
7-member crew is about to embark on the 103rd space shuttle flight in history. Discovery will transport the Expedition 2 crew to their new home on orbit and bring home the Expedition 2 crew, Expedition 1 crew after 4 months in space. This mission continuing a permanent human presence in space. All systems aboard Discovery are go. T-minus 1 minute and counting. 1 minute away from the launch of Space Shuttle Discovery. Discovery is now operating from internal power supplies. Orbiter computers have positioned the vent doors to launch configuration. At T-minus 31 seconds, Discovery's onboard computers will have control of vehicle functions. T-minus 30 seconds.
25.
Thousands of gallons of water will be dumped on the launch platform in a few seconds. T-minus 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. Go for main engine start. 4, 3, 2. Booster ignition and liftoff of Discovery and a team of explorers shaping their destiny.
Roger, roll, Discovery.
Houston is now controlling. The roll maneuver is complete, and Discovery is now in a heads down, wings level position, carrying the next resident crew to the International Space Station. Seconds into the flight. Discovery's engines are now throttling down to 72% of rated thrust as it passes through the area of maximum aerodynamic pressure. Discovery already at an altitude of 5.5 miles.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Go at throttle up.
And Discovery's 3 liquid-fueled main engines are now back at full throttle, 104% of rated thrust. One and a half minutes into flight, Discovery has now expended 2.5 million pounds of propellant. It weighs less than half of what it did at the time of its liftoff. Now at an altitude of 19 miles, downrange from the Kennedy Space Center at 17 miles. Two minutes into the flight. And the booster officer here in Mission Control confirms separation of the solid rocket boosters. Little more than 6 minutes of powered flight remaining now.
Discovery, 2-engine Ben.
2-engine Ben.
And with that call, Discovery could make it to the transatlantic landing site at Ben Guerir, Morocco, if one engine should fail. However, all 3 engines are continuing to perform well. Discovery is now at an altitude of 44 miles, downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, 65 miles. Three minutes into the flight, Discovery now at an altitude of 50 miles, downrange from the Kennedy Space Center at a distance of 87 miles. All systems on board are continuing to perform well, with just about 5.5 minutes of powered flight remaining.
Discovery Houston, negative return.
Negative return.
Discovery is now too far downrange and has gained too much altitude to return to the Kennedy Space Center in the event of an engine failure. However, the engines and other systems on board are continuing to perform well. Discovery is now at an altitude of 64 miles, downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, a distance of 170 miles. About 4 minutes of powered flight remaining on board as the crew continues its climb to orbit.
Discovery, press to ATO, select Zaragoza.
Press ATO, select Zaragoza.
With that call, Discovery could now reach orbit on 2 engines should one fail. Once again, all 3 engines continuing to perform well. Discovery is now downrange from the Kennedy Space Center at a distance of about 257 miles. Just about 3.5 minutes of powered flight remaining. We're 5 minutes and 12 seconds into the light of Discovery.
Okay, here we go, thanks.
Discovery, we are 1 minute from spreading. We will be unable to speak to you for about 1 minute.
Okay, thanks. Houston Discovery, I'm putting MPS powered on isolation and GH2 inerting in work.
Discovery Houston, we copy Vegas. Discovery Houston, we like your onboard targets. You have a go to load. Vegas, we copied regarding ISOL and inerting.
Okay, we copy, thanks. Houston Discovery, starting ET umbilical door closure.
Discovery Houston, we are monitoring Vegas.
ET umbilical door closure complete.
And Discovery Vegas, we concur. We saw dual motor times on all. We'd like to get a forward window report when convenient.
Okay, stand by. And Houston, are we good to maneuver?
Stand by. Discovery Houston, you are go to maneuver.
Here we go. Houston, Discovery on the window report.
And Discovery Wex, go ahead, sir.
Several smudges, even more so than I've seen on other flights, although they tend to be less in obscurity. In other words, they're not as bright, but there are more of them than usual. No factor, of course. It's just doesn't look like it did very much.
Yeah, Wex, we copy all. Thank you. Discovery Houston, Wex, is that true for both the commanders and pilot side, sir?
Yes, that's affirmative.
Copy, thank you.